Hi, I'm still traveling. I'm in Busan. We just did the cable car and I'm doing a short hike. They call this the healing forest. And I thought I'd try it. Maybe I'd heal. But also, since it is Busan, I thought there is no better way or better venue to introduce 10 of the things that we need to notice with Jimin's new album, Muse. This is a long time coming. I've been trying to do this, but there's so much things that have gotten in the way. But finally, I am here. So let's get to the video. Phase versus Muse. Many feel that Muse pushes Phase out, hailing it as a superior album, and I half agree. I feel that Phase thematically has so many intimate dimensions, but it is also infinitely universal in sentiment that it will most likely take a literal life-changing experience for Jimin to write about something that can compare. But sonically, I would agree that Muse edges Phase out. Jimin, being the creative supremo of his own project, managed to create songs that played into his vocal strengths. The album feels like an extended flirtation that ends with an intellectual realization. And this really partially describes Jimin's artistry and performance style. Watching him sing and perform always feel like he is seducing you, but once you come closer, you're going to find a man with a cup of coffee in hand ready for an intellectual conversation about your existence. Jimin is that artist. Pretty, charming, beautiful, and commanding, but deeply intellectual and analytical. Sonic growth. That being said, I do think this is something to be expected since the beginning of BTS's Chapter 2. Jimin has been in some sort of a pilgrimage to find his artistic identity. As he creates and pens most of his songs, it is but natural for him to evolve and grow. Part of that is improving his own voice. In more ways than one, he is finding ways on how to better express his thoughts. He was very straightforward and no nonsense in Phase, but in Muse, he has started using analogy more. There are more metaphors, toying with poetry, which he said he isn't good at. He also said he has gone back to basics with singing, working on his techniques. This certainly showed in Muse. His voice is richer, thicker, and much more controlled, and that helped him create an album where his voice is actually just as important as the messages of his songs. Opposite of Phase, it starts grand and ended intimate. Rebirth picked up where Set Me Free left off. Sonically, that is. It's grand and big. Jimin starts and ends on a high note as he sings to someone for whom he wants to be better. He maintains the grandeur in Smeraldo marching band in instruments, but the lyrics were much more intimate this time, clearly addressing his fans, inviting them to grow and evolve with him. By Slow Dance and Be Mine, he lost the grandeur, but replaced it with danceable beats, teasing and flirtatious. Clearly, he is slowing down. By the time he gets to Who, he loses all fantasies and brings it down to what he really feels. He's looking for that passion. He wants the adventure. He's looking for a muse, and he hasn't found it yet. It's an abomination Rebirth is not longer in a single. When RM said he likes Rebirth better than the whole album Phase, I wanted to scream, yes, Rebirth is my favorite track on the album. I think it's perfect from beginning to end. It sounds big and grand with so many layers of instruments accompanying Jimin's much more controlled high notes. But the juxtaposition of this grandness with the intimacy of the lyrics is really what gives the song more layers and depth. The combination of such big sonic feel with such intimate meaning grips you from beginning to end. It's one of those songs that hold you and never lets you go. Right from the beginning, it snatches you, elevates you, and keeps you there until the very end. It's a theater of his emotions. Jimin directly stated that Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band was his inspiration. an album that the Beatles created when they wanted to create a different persona, to dwell more into their artistry and allow them to create a world very detached from their identity as the Beatles. Smeraldo Garden Marching Band does the same thing for Jimin and his listeners. It pulls you into this world Jimin created, a world that represents his emotions and his story but does not convey the actual events of his life. The person singing Slow Dance and Be Mine is the guy that Jimin created to express his emotion, but dramatized. So yes, the songs may be about love or looking for love, but that is just a metaphor for what he really feels and wants to convey. Emotional analogy. Just like his first album, Muse was very much a reflection of his emotional state. He managed to convey just how peaceful he feels, but also expressed how he is longing for excitement and passion. But instead of simply describing how he felt and simply exploring the circumstances that led him to it, he created a story around that emotion. Instead of just saying he is in this bland, peaceful state, he decided to create a guy, seducing excitement and passion. He is a step closer to creating his own universe. This shouldn't really surprise us. Magic Shop was Jimin's brainchild. That should have been our first clue on Jimin's capacity to create stories, dimensions, fantasy lands that we can immerse ourselves in. At this rate, he could very well create his own mythology. Intelligence to deal with a deceptively dangerous emotion. Peaceful, steady, but bland. That's how RM and Jimin described the very essence of what started the album. Jimin emphasized he isn't sad. He doesn't think that it's a bad state to be in. He is, after all, content, secure, and at peace. He simply misses the passion he used to feel when they were starting out, fighting for success. This is actually way more common than we think, but also more complex than we think. Many of us get to that point in our lives when we feel content and at peace, but not necessarily happy. It's hard to recognize because we seem predilected to desire happiness and excitement. In our desire to feel happy, we often disturb the peace. That's why married people get into affairs. That's why successful people get into drugs or whatever. They are always chasing the adventure and the happiness, the high. But it could also feel embarrassing or even arrogant or even greedy to have this much peace and still want more from life. But Jimin didn't shy away from it, choosing to talk about what people could see as mundane or arrogant. Instead, he created a story around it, a testament of how an artist can turn anything into art. While Face was a narration of his story, Muse is a conversation. Face was largely Jimin talking about what happened to him during the pandemic when everything was taken away from him, as it did to everyone else, and his journey towards peace. It was him telling us his story. Muse, on the other hand, was more conversational. Jimin was constantly talking to someone, echoing someone else's emotion or words, and responding to them. He isn't just conveying what happened to him or how he feels now. He's actually talking to somebody, telling somebody that he wants that person to be his. And this is yet another sign of Jimin's growth in terms of creative style. He doesn't get stuck in a single expression of a single voice. He evolves. Range, but also consistency. He managed to experiment with different genres, but still managed to maintain a unifying feel, the nostalgic 90s when everything else was still cleaner and simpler. Rebirth, as I've said, was grand, big, and loud. I wouldn't be surprised if an orchestra picks it up at some point. Slow Dance has that 90s Latin vibe. It is seductive, but also romantic. Be Mine has this jazz pop element. It is laid back, groovy, with a mellow beat, allowing Jimin's soft yet expressive vocals to shine. It is still very intimate, but romantic this time. Who is R&B pop and SGMB is marching band. And yet all songs are very clean in that there's not a lot of instrumental layers, which allows Jimin's voice to actually shine.
Hi, guess where I am? The background is the cafe, such a beautiful place. I hope you guys can make it here. Definitely make it a part of your itinerary next time you make it to South Korea. Okay, so I think there are several things that I kind of want people to take away from the second album. Number one is really how Jimin has gone back to the basics in terms of his vocal skills, and it really shows. I think I've mentioned this in the last video that I did for his music video, but it sounds so full, it sounds so whole, and very, very much stable. He has a much more control over his voice. And if I don't know what's going to happen because he's not singing right now because he's in the military, but I hope that he continues with his foundational skills, building his foundation. And if he gets there, if he's already a fantastic singer, given that he didn't really have formal singing lessons, and if he hones it, my God, the things that he can do with his voice. And then second is that there is the spectrum of the genre that he covered in the music video really shows his commitment to growth. I hope that he keeps it up, and I hope that that gets appreciated. Second is that I love it because people really didn't expect it from him. As I've said before, he really got a lot of flack when he was still not doing any solo activities, and he was just doing it with BTS because he had the least amount of songwriting credits, and then he goes out in almost the entire album. All but one, he wrote the lyrics and he was a part of the production. But for Who, he definitely was the still the end of and the beginning and the end of the song, because this he was the one who gave instructions to the producer and the composers on what kind of song he wanted to do. And I firmly believe that eventually, when he has a better grasp of the English language, he will also be writing his own lyrics in English. Next is that this is, I think, in all, not just the songs itself, but he has released many videos showing just how much control he has in the creative direction of the music videos, what he really wants to do, how he wants to promote. And I hope people will be able to appreciate that he isn't just a singer, not just a puppet. He really is the head, and he really is the heart of his own creatives. All right, thank you so much for sticking it out. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. And of course, share the video. Also, follow me on Patreon and on Twitter or X, and also on Instagram. Thank you.